beautiful morning to you guys. Today's topic is an extension on the ego because that subject I can go into depth on that subject so that way you can actually understand it better. So this is part 2 of silencing your ego so you can attain happiness. Because with the ego, having a huge ego, an inflated ego, it will be very difficult for a person to achieve and find happiness. And if you take a homeless person versus a person a rich person, most of the time the homeless person is most likely to find happiness faster than a person who has a lot of money, because you need humility in order for you to find happiness. If you have never experienced humility, it will be very difficult for you to find happiness, to feel happy. So a person who is born in a wealthy family, or a family that has a lot of money, it will be a lot more difficult for them to find happiness because they will never experience humility. And that is one of the key things for you to find happiness. You need to experience humility. You need to humble yourself. If you are not humble, then most of the time you will have an inflated ego. Your ego will be inflated. So the ego is the false self, is the false identity. It's what society has conditioned us to believe who we are. So if a person, let's take person for example. Let's take person A and then person B. Person A goes through school and they are constantly failing in any subject, and most of the time their grades are low. They have FDs, and then take subject B, a person B, and that person goes through school and they are constantly surpassing every other person in any subject, and their grades are high, so they're always having A's and B's. So that person begins to build an identity as, I am better than the person that has a lower grade average. The more this continues on in society, then the person's ego becomes bigger, and other people around them begin to validate them, begin to give them validations as who they are, because you don't know who you are until someone else tells you who you are. For example, if you were the only person on the earth, you would not know who you are until you found yourself. If no one is there to compliment you, if no one is there to validate you, then you don't know who you are. This is where children get their identity from their parents, from childhood, because the parents tells the child who they are. In the education system, they form an ego, they build an ego, they build an identity of who they think they are, but it is not the true self. That is the false identity, which is the ego. So having an inflated ego is like having a filter on and you living through life. You will never fully experience life. So one way to subdue the ego and become integrated with ego, you will never be able to kill your ego. The only thing you can do is subdue it and transcend it and live above it. So what you do is you humble yourself. Never try to think you're better than another person. Only you can never think you are inferior to another person, because only you can allow yourself to feel inferior to another being, because no one being is inferior to the other. Only you can allow that. You can allow yourself to feel that way. So never, always humble yourself. Never think you're better than the other person. You're just comparing oranges to apples. And try to try to find a balance between society and the spirituality, because you can go in and out on a conscious level, in and out of realities. This is what happens to me most of the time. I go in and out of realities, and I've experienced different aspects of realities because I can, on a conscious level, shift my consciousness, and I can shift my perspectives, I can shift my perceptions, and based on that perception, then I view the reality different, and I can actually see how other people think, and I can just kind of see, and I can experience the thoughts that filters through the person's mind. And that's why most of the time I do experience the lower frequency realities, where only doubts filters in through my mind. Excuse me. And then as soon as I shift my consciousness, my perception to a higher reality, then no more doubts comes in. It's only positivity and strong faith. So another way to subdue your ego, to silence the ego, is to, like I stated before, is engage yourself in activities, but don't try to compete with the other person. Instead, just truly experiencing yourself, enjoying the now moment. As soon as you start to compete with the other person and wants to win, wants to beat them, then your ego is in charge. Your ego is becoming inflated. And now in the digital age, you will see a lot of people try to seek validations. You will try to see and most of the time is with females. They will put a lot of makeup on. They will try to put a lot of filters on to seek validation, to seek compliments from other people, especially guys, because it's because they've lost this sense of self. They don't know who they are, essentially. So the ego is in charge. The ego is in the foreground, running the program. So they themselves is trying to find out who they are. So they are constantly seeking validation. The more a person seeks validations, the more you can tell that they've lost themselves. They don't know who they are, because that's the main reason why they're seeking the validation to begin with, because they want to know who they are. So through the eyes of the other person, by the compliments, by the other person validating them, then they can form an identity. They can say, oh, this is who I think I am. But that's not their true self. They've lost themselves. That is the ego. And then the more compliments they receive, the more validation they receive, and then the ego becomes boosted, and then they pretty much fell into a trap. So just be genuine. That's what I recommend. Just don't try to don't try to pretend to be who you are. It starts with finding happiness. Starts with being genuine, with being true to yourself, being honest with yourself, being honest with who you are. As soon as you start pretending to be someone else, trying to put another mask on and trying to seek validation, you've already lost yourself. And once you lose yourself, then it will be very difficult for you to be happy, to find happiness, because the ego is in the foreground, and then the ego, you will just be in the passenger seat, experiencing life through the eyes of the body. So that's why I recommend you guys just to be humble, stay humble, and never try to pretend to be someone else. Especially in the digital age, people pretend to be anyone else they could be. It's very easy, but they don't know the damage they're causing to their mind, to themselves. So I'm trying to keep this video short, guys. So I can go if I were to really explain everything, it would take me days to explain everything. So that's why I'm doing this in parts, because it goes really deep. Because the subconscious mind is pretty much is in control. If you're not in control, and then you're just in a passenger seat, just watching your life being lived. You're not really living a life. And something happened to you, you don't feel like you're in control, then you wonder what happened, where did I go wrong, what did I do wrong. That's because you have not taken control of your life. Your ego is in control. Until the next video, guys.